If we consider consciousness as a state, we're talking about energy rather than matter, and in fact the word consciousness still kind of escapes us. The jury's out on what that word means. We don't know who the driver and the observer is when it comes to our own personal consciousness. And in fact, we don't even know if consciousness is something that exists within us or if it's something that surrounds us and permeates us. We're not sure if we operate consciousness or if it drives us. Who's telling you off when you're beating up on yourself? Those flashes of inspiration, are they born in your own head or are they packages of data transmitted to us? And if so, on what wavelength are they travelling? The more we talk about the word consciousness, the more apparent it becomes that we're talking about different states of being. There's our physical consciousness that eats and sleeps and is wrapped up in biological imperatives that drive us to reproduce, to compete, and to survive at all costs. Our emotional state seems more quality-based, more discriminating, and in many respects less limited. And while the body is at least honest about its needs, our emotional body is a much trickier customer. It's often as much an enemy as an ally. For some of us, it never seems to know what it wants. The mental self, the part of us that evaluates and measures, seems the best equipped and most qualified to manage our other states, as it's more evidence-driven and tends to operate based on facts rather than reacting to whatever is happening around us. But the stronger this body becomes, the more the other parts of us seem to atrophy. The body withers, and the emotions go into a state of exile as the brain takes strict control of our affairs. So how do we get our house in order? Let's look at the journey of the soul and imagine that consciousness is a fragment of a perfect self. A self that exists without need or limitation, and that's travelling into densest matter. This fragment is immortal, so it continues to persist as the physical shell carrying it falls back into matter, and over time this divine spark forgets its connection to its perfect self. Over multiple lifetimes and incarnations, it collates and improves as it continues its journey back towards its perfect state. Many schools of thought, such as Buddhism, present us with the idea that this consciousness evolves its way through the animal kingdom before becoming an individuated human consciousness. Let's jump ahead to this part. So this fragment of spirit, which has evolved and transformed through multiple incarnations, now finds itself in a human body. And it's right here that the personality, the exoteric self, is born. The youngest souls are completely physically driven. They respond only to the needs of the body. In the basis levels of incarnation, the consciousness hungers for food and for physical sensations that provide evidence of life. They're separate from other people and don't understand the world of connections outside the scope of their own basic needs. The idea of separation and division is easy and based on simple criteria like appearance. The idea of an afterlife, let alone multiple lifetimes, seems ridiculous and impossible because everything in the physical world dies. As our sensitivity to the world around us evolves through the course of lifetimes, the emotional body is born. The emotional body begins to react and respond. It becomes a form of instinctive memory that allows us to live more quality-based lives and to assign ideas such as good or bad to a more refined type of stimuli. Emotional feedback allows us to connect with the world and define ourselves. Are we good enough? Do other people deserve our love? Are we kidding ourselves? Will this last forever, or how bad do things need to get? And, without answers, the wrong kind of questions fester within us. Toxic thought forms become self-sabotaging patterns. We become too easy to hurt or too quick to hurt others. But in our own clumsy way, we're moving towards relationships and connections. We're becoming group conscious. The emotional body intensifies the experiences of the physical body. Food becomes comfort instead of sustenance. Sex becomes love or self-definition instead of procreation or pleasure. Our relationship with our own body becomes more emotional. We discover vanity or self-loathing. We begin to need others and to desire love, and for some of us, we become acquainted with this deep abyss within us that nothing seems to fill as we struggle our way through a universe that's constantly in a state of turbulent, chaotic change. For many, the first steps into the mental body are based on decisions and ideas. The taking on of thought forms that somehow framework the world around us and provide a structure where all things exist. Some of the trademarks of a strong and imbalanced mental body are superiority and judgment. We intellectualize the suffering of others, suffering we really ourselves feel, or by lazy comparison, a brand of suffering we believe we know all too well if our intellect is fueled by a strong emotional body. We formulate solutions to the human problem and find causes for suffering in the world. When the emotions become involved, the certainty of the mental body is driven by the intense urgency of the emotional body. We distort. We find facts that dismantle evidence to support our own prejudice. We fight with memes to elevate our own sense of self-importance and to destroy imagined enemies with inferior ideas. If the emotional white noise is strong enough, it can overwhelm the mental body. Paranoia, anxiety, depression take over as negative emotional patterns become distorted by thought forms, or our thought forms become overclocked by emotional intensity. As the drama of our unrepentant emotional and mental bodies begins to accumulate baggage over multiple incarnations, we're delivered to a lifetime where we are ready for change. Struggle demands that we confront who we are and who we want to become, and it's at this point that we begin to build a connection to the soul. And in this respect, the soul is the undiscovered self, an energy drawing us away from matter and back toward our spiritual source. Like the body, the emotions and the mind, it's also a journey, and it will most likely take multiple lifetimes to complete.